Imagine handing a bank teller a slip of paper, a check, that is completely worthless. There is no money behind it. The account it's drawn on is fake, or empty, or belongs to no one at all. And imagine the teller looks at it, smiles, and hands you back thousands of dollars in real cash. You walk out the door richer, and the paper you left behind is worth exactly nothing. Now imagine doing that over and over, in city after city, until the worthless paper has turned into millions of real dollars sitting in your pocket. That is not a fantasy. It is one of the oldest and most elegant cons in the world, and at its peak, one man is said to have turned fake checks into something like $2.5 million, an astonishing fortune for the era, without ever pulling out a weapon. Here is what makes it so unsettling: he didn't beat the bank security by force. He used the bank's own rules against it, and he used something even more reliable than any rule: the simple human tendency to trust a confident person who looks like they belong. In the next few minutes, I'm going to take this con apart, one gear at a time. And by the end, you'll understand why the very same machine is still running today, in your email inbox, dressed up in modern clothes. To understand the whole con, you have to understand one hidden feature of how banks used to work, a feature almost no ordinary person ever thought about. It's called the float. When you deposit a check, the money doesn't actually move instantly. Behind the scenes, your bank has to send that check back to the other bank, confirm the money is really there, and collect it. In the paper era, that process could take days. And here is the crucial part: to keep customers happy, banks would often give you access to some or all of that money right away, before the check had actually cleared. Think carefully about what that means. There is a window of time, a gap, during which the bank has handed you real, spendable money based on nothing more than its faith that the check is good. If the check is genuine, no harm done, the money arrives a few days later and the books balance. But if the check is worthless, and you are already gone by the time it bounces back, the bank has simply given away real cash for a piece of fiction. That gap, that float, is the beating heart of the entire con. Everything else the con artist does is built around one goal: get real money out of that window, and disappear before the window closes. But there's a problem. A bank won't hand a stranger a large pile of cash against an unfamiliar check just because he asks nicely. The con needs the teller to feel safe. So the second gear is the manufacture of trust, and this is where the artistry comes in. The most effective check artists understood that people don't verify a person, they read signals and fill in the rest. A crisp uniform. A confident, slightly bored manner, as if handling large sums is routine. An identity that sounds respectable and important: an airline pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, a company executive. By his own account, the most famous practitioner of this con posed as an airline pilot and discovered that the uniform did almost all the work for him. People didn't see a young man with a fake check. They saw a pilot, trustworthy, competent, clearly successful, and their guard simply dropped. That is the terrifying efficiency of a costume. We are trained, deeply, to read authority from its symbols, and to assume the substance behind the symbol is real. The con artist skips the substance and buys the symbol directly. A uniform, a title, a calm voice, a few cheap props, and suddenly a worthless check in his hand looks exactly like a routine transaction for an important man in a hurry. The third gear is the check itself. In the paper era, a check was just a printed form with the right layout, the right numbers, and a signature. There was no instant electronic verification staring back at the teller. So a skilled forger could produce checks that looked completely legitimate: the correct bank names, plausible account and routing numbers, professional printing. Some of the boldest practitioners went further, exploiting how the banking system physically moved paper around. They understood that the numbers printed along the bottom of a check actually tell the system where to send it to be cleared. Manipulate those numbers, and a check deposited in one city might be routed to the wrong place entirely, wandering through the system for days or weeks longer than it should, stretching the float from days into a small eternity. Every extra day the check spent lost in the machinery was another day the con artist had real money in hand and remained a step ahead. the forged paper didn't just have to look real. It had to buy time. And time, in this con, was everything. Now watch all three gears turn together, because this is the con in motion. He walks into a bank, or a hotel, or a store willing to cash a check for a well-dressed guest, wearing the uniform, wearing the confidence, carrying the beautifully forged paper. He presents the check. The teller sees a respectable professional and an ordinary-looking transaction, and, trusting the float, hands over real cash or credits the account and lets him withdraw. He thanks them politely and leaves. And then, this is the essential final move, he is gone. Not just out the door, but out of the city, sometimes out of the region, before that check ever finds its way back to reveal itself as worthless. By the time the bounced check lands on someone's desk with a red stamp, the man who cashed it is a memory, a description, a uniform no one can quite place, already repeating the whole performance somewhere new under a different name. Do it once, and you've stolen a few $1,000s. Do it dozens and dozens of times, gliding from town to town, and the worthless paper quietly compounds into millions. But every con of this kind carries the seed of its own destruction, and it is the same flaw every single time. The float is a window, and windows close. Eventually, every worthless check comes home. It bounces, and it leaves a permanent trail, a location, a date, a camera, a signature, a description of a confident man in a uniform. Commit the con once and vanish, and you might get away clean. But the whole appeal of this machine is that it's repeatable, and repetition is a signature. Do the same trick in 40 cities, and you haven't left one clue, you've left 40, and somewhere a patient investigator starts laying them side by side. The dazzling uniform that opened every door becomes the exact detail that witnesses remember. The bank's slow, plodding clearing system, the very delay the con depended on, grinds forward anyway, and one by one the bounce checks stack up into a map of where he's been and a prediction of where he'll go next. The float that made him rich is the same float that, a few days late every time, is always walking up behind him. In the most famous cases, the law eventually caught up, and, in a twist the story loves, the greatest of these forgers reportedly ended up advising banks and law enforcement on how to stop people exactly like him. So here is why this 100-year-old trick should matter to you right now, because it never actually died. It just changed clothes. The float still exists, and con artists still live inside it. Today it looks like this: someone sends you a check, you sold something online, you have won a prize, you were hired for a work-from-home job, and the check is for more than expected. Just deposit it, they say, keep your part, and wire back the difference. And because of the very same float we've been talking about, your bank shows the money in your account within a day or two, so the check looks real. You wire back the difference in real money. And then, a week later, the original check bounces, because it was worthless all along, and the bank pulls that money back out of your account. The stranger's check was fiction, the money you wired them was real, and now you're the one holding the loss. It is the exact same machine, a worthless piece of paper, a gap in the system, and your own trust used as the lever. So the immunization is simple, and I want you to remember it. Money showing up in your account is not the same as money that has cleared. Never send real funds against a check until your bank confirms, not available, but truly, finally cleared. And be most suspicious precisely when someone gives you more than you're owed and asks you to send some back. That reversal is the oldest tell there is. So let me ask you, have you ever been offered a deal that felt a little too generous, where a stranger seemed weirdly eager to overpay you? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one.